Southwest Airlines just nuked the friendly skies with sneaky new rules that could cost you hundreds in hidden fees. Yes, the airline of bags fly free just stabbed you in the back. But guess what? I've got insider hacks to help you beat their sneaky moves and come out ahead the next time you travel.
Welcome to your Money on Easy mode with Damien.
If you've been following this channel at all, you know that I'm a big fan of the Southwest Companion Pass. I think in today's travel rewards world, it is the best perk out there. However, Southwest Airlines just unveiled some sweeping changes. They introduced a new budget fare, which is very restrictive. They killed off their non-expiring travel credits, and perhaps most surprising of all, they're going to start charging for checked bags. Southwest is spinning this as a customer-friendly change, but let's just call it what it is. It's a cash grab. We've seen in the news lately that Southwest has gone through some difficult times. They were dealing with an activist investor who was trying to push for changes to the way that they do business. They, in 2024, for the first time ever, had to lay off about 15% of their staff. So we see the Southwest is not doing well right now. And to try to turn the business around, they're proposing a bunch of new changes. All of them are bad for us. So in today's video, I'm going to break down those top 3 most impactful changes, talk about why Southwest is doing this, and give you some tips on how to deal with it and come out ahead. First up, let's talk about the fare changes. So the first big change is the introduction of a basic fare. They got rid of the want to get away fare and have introduced a new basic fare, which has a lower price point and a lot more restrictions. In addition to introducing this basic fare, Southwest plans to start adding premium seating, which will have extended legroom, a higher price tag, and assigned seating. This is a complete rework of Southwest's one-size-fits-all, everyone boards together approach. So let's talk about some of the restrictions of this new basic fare. First up, here's a big one. You cannot change your flight after booking it. No same-day changes, no standbys at the airport. You can still cancel a basic fare up to 10 minutes before your flight, and you'll get a travel credit. However, here's another new change. Those travel credits on the basic fare expire after only 6 months. This is a harsh shift from Southwest's prior no expiration policy. In other words, the new basic fare will be a true use it or lose it ticket. And another negative for the Southwest basic fare is that it earns rapid rewards points at a much lower rate than the other types of tickets. Why is Southwest doing this? Why introduce a new base fare and then also introduce some assigned seats with extra legroom at a higher price tag? In short, these fares are driven by competition and expected increased revenue. By launching this basic stripped down fare, Southwest can now compete with the budget airlines on price. However, for that basic fare, you're getting a basic flight. And Southwest really wants to nudge you towards those higher tiers of tickets so that you can earn better rapid rewards points, get a checked bag, and perhaps get an assigned seat. One of the things I hate the most about Southwest is their open seating. You have to check in 24 hours immediately before your flight in order to get a decent B boarding group. If not, you'll end up with a middle seat. Southwest has heard this. In fact, Southwest reports that 80% of their customers who were surveyed would prefer assigned seating. So by offering this new higher tier with assigned seats, they're catering to that demand that they've heard a lot of from their customers. I'm going to cover this in more detail here in a couple of minutes, but another thing to know about the basic fare is that it doesn't include any checked bags. So what are my insider secrets to deal with these changes and the new basic fare? This change goes into effect on May 28th. So now is the time to lock in your perks. That May 28th date is the booking deadline. It's not the travel deadline. So if you book flights now before May 28th, none of these new basic fares or the loss of checked bags go into effect. And that counts for travel after the May 28th date. My next tip has to do with a law from the Department of Transportation. It's called the 24-hour cancellation rule. Southwest won't tell you about this, but they have to abide by it if you ask for it. You are allowed to cancel your flight up to 24 hours before the flight time for a full refund. Now, I'm talking about demanding a refund, not getting a travel credit. The travel credit, remember, will now have a 6-month expiration date on those basic fares. So if you cancel at least 24 hours before your flight, ask for a full refund. Southwest has to honor this per regulations of the DOT. Now, if you're not simply worried about the price and you're open to paying for one of the upgraded fares, consider it. They come with a lot more flexibility. If you're not sure if you're going to need to change your flight, or if you would like to include some bags, check bags, with your flight, consider one of the Want to Get Away a Plus or other tiers of flights so that you can have that flexibility in your ticket. Now, if you've been following my instructions for how to earn the Southwest Companion Pass, you'll have 2 Southwest credit cards. Make sure to book your Southwest flights on your Southwest cards because then you'll earn more Rapid Rewards points for those purchases. So even though you would be purchasing a basic fare, you can still earn more points on that purchase using a Southwest credit card. Next topic, in a move that shocked all of us Southwest fans, they announced they will start charging for checked bags, ending a decades-long policy of bags fly free. This was a defining aspect of what Southwest was. Now, starting May 28th, any flights booked on that date or after will start charging you for checked bags. Now here's the weird thing. Southwest hasn't posted the checked bag fee amount yet, but some expect it will be in line with the industry norms, which are something like $30 for the first bag, $40 for the second bag, and it gets more expensive as you check more bags. Now these checked bag fees do have some exceptions. If you're an A-list preferred member or business select, those come with a free checked bag. But everybody else, including that new basic fare, is going to pay for every one of their checked bags. As a longtime Southwest fan, I am shocked by this change. It was one of the key differentiators between Southwest and their other major airline competitors like United, American, and Delta. So how's this going to impact us? Well, Southwest has long been known as a family airline because of the low ticket prices and the free check bags. So a family of 4 who might be used to checking 4 bags for free is now going to have $120 to $160 tacked on to their travel plans. Because travelers are price sensitive, we're likely going to see more carry-on bags in the cabin and carry-on bags that will have to be checked a lot sooner in the boarding process. So unfortunately, that fight for overhead bin space is just going to get more intense. Now, since Southwest is enforcing this policy, starting with flights that are booked after May 28th, there's going to be plenty of travel after that date that will be a mix of passengers who have to pay for their bags and those who made their reservation prior to the May 28th date and won't have to pay for them. So expect some snags and some confusion during this transition time where we're figuring out what bag needs to be paid for and what still flies free. Why in the world would Southwest abandon their bags fly free policy? In a word, money. Baggage fees generate huge revenue for the airlines. In 2023 alone, baggage fees accounted for $7 billion in revenue. And Southwest estimates that baggage fees alone will bring in about $1.5 billion in revenue annually. Southwest has been lagging behind in profits after some lackluster quarters. This is low-hanging fruit for them to try to boost their revenue and earnings. Southwest will also be able to cut down on their costs. Because of their bags fly free policy, Southwest has always carried more baggage, more checked baggage on its flights. With the implementation of a price for that checked bag, Southwest anticipates fewer travelers will be traveling with as many checked bags, making their planes lighter, costing them less in fuel. Also, by tying free baggage into the higher tier tickets, Southwest is incentivizing its travelers to spend more to reach those higher tiers in order to get the free checked bags. These higher tiers mean more revenue for for Southwest. So what are my tips for dealing with having to pay for checked bags? The first tip is to maximize your carry-ons. Southwest still allows 2 carry-ons, which is 1 standard carry-on bag and 1 personal item. So to dodge these new fees, pack smart and carry on as much as possible. Become an expert packer. Fold smartly, or even consider vacuum sealing your carry-ons in order to pack more in. Just be sure, if you're carrying on, to board the plane early so that you have enough overhead bin space. Here is my second tip for dealing with the cost for checked bags. If you have a Southwest card, Southwest says that you'll get 1 free checked bag for your flight. The lowest entry-level Southwest credit card has a $69 annual fee. So if you plan to fly more than a couple of times in a year and you'd like to check a bag, getting the Southwest credit card will allow you to check your bags for free. In Southwest world, A-list status is their elite status. It's really hard to get. You have to do a lot of traveling in order to get it. But if you're an A-list member, you get a checked bag for free. And here is a trick to try. It doesn't work every time, but it's worth trying. If you are a companion traveling with an A-list member, you may be able to use their A-list status for your checked bag. Just ask the gate agent if that's a possibility, and sometimes they will let that A-list status trickle over to you as the companion so that you can get a free checked bag as well. Now remember, like I mentioned, May 28th is the magic date for all of these changes. So if you know you have some travel to do later this year, go ahead and book your flight now before that May 28th date. And Southwest says that they will honor your 2 bags fly for free. Now, if all else fails and you know you're going to have to check a bag, but you're traveling with other people, consolidate your luggage as much as possible. There's a 50-pound weight limit on those checked bags. So if 2 travelers were going to travel with 2 20-pound checked bags, go ahead and consolidate all of that into 1 piece of luggage and then split the cost of that 1 checked bag. Okay, the third big change, and this one also makes me really sad, is their change in cancellation and change policy. Southwest built a reputation on being traveler friendly and allowing for flexibility. They used to have no change fees, and starting in 2022, there was no expiration on flight credits. Well, that era of friendliness and flexibility is ending. Starting on that magic date I mentioned before, May 28th, flight credits will once again expire. A flight credit is what you get if you have to cancel your flight and you don't get a refund. Southwest gives you a credit which you can use towards your next flight. Those credits used to never expire. However, they will starting May 28th. For the basic fare, they have a shelf life of 6 months. Very short. Not a very nice policy. For all of the other fares, you have 12 months to use that credit. So that's the change in travel credits. Let's talk about the change in changes. You used to be able to change your flights with no fee. However, as I mentioned before, the new basic fare does not allow for any changes. It's a true use it or lose it flight. If you need to make a change, you'll have to cancel it, and then you'll get a travel credit, which is only good for those 6 months. So what's the impact to you? Well, as you can see, your credits used to have an infinite shelf life. And this was a huge selling point, especially during COVID times when it was uncertain when or where you could travel. Now, if life happens and you have to rebook, you are on the clock. You've got either 6 months or 12 months to make that trip happen, or all of that money is gone. Why is Southwest doing this to us? Once again, money. Think of travel credits like gift cards. Companies love it when you don't use your gift cards. That's essentially free money to them. And the enforcing an expiration of travel credits is the same concept. Once you hit the 6-month mark and you never took that flight, all that money that you gave them goes to Southwest without providing you a service. It's essentially free money for the airline. This is also another way that Southwest tries to incentivize us as travelers to not buy their basic fare, but to pay for a more expensive fare so that we have that flexibility. Okay, let's talk about how you can deal with these changes to cancellation policy and change policy. First up, set yourself some reminders. If you purchased a basic fare and you need to cancel your flight and get a travel credit, set a reminder for yourself for 6 months from that date so that you ensure that you use up those funds and don't let them go to waste. If you bought any other fare, remember you have a 12-month window to purchase that flight. This next tip might not work, but it could be worth a try. If you are getting close to the expiration of your travel credit, go ahead and book a flight as far out in the future as you can, and then cancel that flight. Sometimes you'll get a new expiration date that is based on the next flight. However, most times your credit starts its expiration date based off of the original flight that was canceled, not a flight that's rebooked using that travel credit. Whenever possible, avoid taking a travel credit altogether. The higher fare tickets allow for full refunds if you cancel at least 10 minutes before your departure. Remember that rule I told you about the Department of Transportation before? If you cancel at least 24 hours before your flight, regardless of the ticket type, you are allowed a full refund. So when you can, seek out those refunds instead of travel credits. Okay, here's another obscure one that Southwest doesn't really advertise, but that they often honor. If you have a travel credit that is going to expire soon, you can request that Southwest convert that into a travel voucher, what's known as a LUV voucher, for a one-time $100 fee. That's a hefty fee, but if you've got some funds that are going to expire anyways, it can be worth spending the $100 just to keep that money around rather than letting all of it line Southwest pockets. And then finally, as I mentioned before, the basic fare doesn't allow for refunds. So if you know you're going to miss your flight, make sure that you cancel your ticket at least 10 minutes before departure time so that you can get some sort of credit for that flight. Let's talk about some of the other changes that Southwest is implementing. Some of these they've announced farther back in the past, but they don't go into effect until later in 2025 or 2026. Not all of these are bad, but they're very different from the Southwest that we've known for decades now. The first one is a partial elimination of their open boarding policy. As I've mentioned previously, I'm not a big fan of their open boarding policy, which means instead of you getting an assigned seat, you get an assigned boarding position. So once you get on the plane, you just grab whatever seat is available to you. Well, Southwest has heard loud and clear from their customers that they don't love this. Now, Southwest says they're going to start rolling this out in 2026, and they haven't given specifics of how the new boarding process will work with some assigned seating and some open seating. So that is a wait and see, but I'm very curious how Southwest plans to pull this mix of boarding off. For a long time, Southwest has only flown during the day, but they have started to introduce red-eye flights. As I've gone to search for travel, I've noticed that these are already in some flight paths. Southwest will start operating near 24 hours around the clock. So how do these two changes impact travelers? Well, first up, with the introduction of assigned seats, they've also mentioned that these will be seats with more leg room. I'm estimating 2 to 3 inches more of pitch, meaning space in front of you where your legs go. Now, some of this is good. If people want to pay more to get more legroom and to board earlier, that works for me. However, the mix of new assigned seating along with having to start paying for checked bags introduces a problem for those travelers who are expecting overhead bin space. If, as I predict, the new assigned seats will get to board before the rest of the flights, that means more people will be on the plane before you get on in open seating and try to find overhead bin space for your carry-on bag. Let's talk about the new red-eye flights. How does that impact us as travelers? There's a mix of pros and cons here. Now, travelers have more options since there are more flights going out throughout the day and the nighttime. This could mean more space on those flights if people are reluctant to take the red-eye flights. On the downside, if you've ever been on a red-eye flight, you know how uncomfortable they can be. Southwest cabins aren't built for overnight flights, meaning you can't really stretch out. The seats themselves don't recline very far, and it would make for a very uncomfortable and perhaps non-existent night's sleep. And don't expect any frills like pillows, eye masks, or blankets. Southwest has never been very generous with these sorts of in-the-air offerings. Another thing that could be a plus with the red-eye flights is that airplanes are in the air more and have more flexibility to reposition the flights throughout the night. When Southwest was only flying during the day, wherever the airplane landed for the final flight of the day is where it would be in the morning to take off from. However, now that they're flying more routes over more times throughout the day, that gives Southwest more opportunities to reposition their planes throughout the day and the night to get them to the right place. So maybe this means that more flights would be on time and would depart from the correct locations. Who knows? We'll see. Maybe I'm just being optimistic. So during this time of transition to more red-eye flights, assigned seating, open boarding, checked bags being paid for, there's a lot going on here. Keep in mind that there's going to be an awkward period of transition where people who booked before May 28th will have the benefits they have today, and people who booked after May 28th will have much more restricted policies. So when you go to get on your flight, make sure you check your boarding pass to understand what your privileges are based on the ticket that you bought. So for a while, some planes might have open seating and others might not. So if your boarding pass has a seat number on it, pay attention to it. A lot of seasoned Southwest travelers are going to be used to the concept of a boarding position. However, if you bought a ticket with an assigned seat, then you don't have to worry about the scramble to try to find where you're going to sit on the plane. Now keep in mind, all of the current practices are in place for any tickets bought before May 28th. So stay sharp. Check in exactly 24 hours before your flight so that you can get that awesome boarding position. Use those 2 free bags until they're gone. And keep in mind that the early bird option is still there for you if you don't want to have to worry about checking in exactly 24 hours before your flight. Southwest has signaled to us that those passengers who have elite status may get some of those extra legroom seats. So if you are a passenger who's traveled enough to get A-list or business status, make sure to check to see if you have the perks that allow you to have an assigned seat with extra legroom instead of having to do open boarding. Also, if you're curious, check out the new red-eye flights. There could be some advantages. As Southwest rolls out these red-eye flights, passengers aren't used to them and they're less desirable than daytime flights. So booking these flights may allow you to have more space on your flight. You might get lucky and have no passengers seated next to you so that you can stretch out on the whole seating bank. Now remember, if you are going to fly on one of these red eyes, Southwest planes are not built for that, so it's going to be uncomfortable. And they're probably not going to offer you things that help you sleep better. So bring your neck pillow, bring your eye mask, bring your earplugs or your noise canceling headphones, and your own blanket. Okay, we've gone on quite a trip exploring all of these changes, and unfortunately this has been kind of a negative episode. But here's the thing, Southwest does still care about their passengers. I remember when I got stuck during the Christmas meltdown of 2022, I believe it was. I reached out to Southwest on Twitter and they were very generous with their offers to try to make things whole for me. So make your voice heard. Southwest pays attention on social media. There are a lot of changes coming, and we as passengers can help influence the direction that Southwest goes as they experiment with all of these new changes. Southwest Airlines used to be the gold standard of hassle-free, flexible, friendly flying. However, their new policies reveal their new playbook. Fees, restrictions, and disguising these things as enhancements. They're busy trying to make their business work and make more money for themselves, while we're left scrambling to understand the fine print in all of these changes. Hopefully this video has helped you to understand what those changes are and how you can deal with them to make flying as stress-free as possible. So remember, before you book your next flight, watch this video, try out some of my sneaky tactics, and let me know in the comments how it goes. See ya!
Thanks for listening to Your Money on Easy Mode. If you enjoyed this episode, then please subscribe and share it with a friend.